Kathy Rain, the director's cut. This got released in October of 2021. I mean, it's about a year old now, come to think of it. By the time you're seeing this or hearing this, it's over a year old. And I was actually eager to get this. I played through Kathy Rain, which is a terrific game, but some things appeared to be sort of not fully fleshed out in the original release. And this is why I like the director's cut, because it expands on the story in the original game. We have other interactions from the original. Now, of course, the story is, of course, the same, that Kathy Rain Kathy Rain returns to Conwell Springs on the funeral of her grandfather. And she is determined to find out what happened to him. This is like a big mystery. And the game expands on the original story a little bit, fleshes out a little bit more. And they add to it to help get through some of the issues that, quote, arose that we find out about Kathy's life. As well as the friendship that she has with Eileen, who is her roommate. And these two are like polar opposites. I mean, Kathy admits if she touches a Bible, she might burn either her or the Bible burn up in fiery smoke or combust, or one of the two. And we also get to see some things expanded on. Because I don't remember when I first played through it if her grandfather was trying to get custody of her. I don't remember that from the original. We also see her have some interactions with the cops prior to it. We have to work through escaping. We get more information found out about what happened to Lily Myers. We have to figure out the location of where the three lights are. That was a new puzzle. We locate some things that I don't remember being in the original. And the events that are in the end game, the final day section of the game, have more to them. And I like that. I liked it. We sort of, get more of expanding on the, quote, relationship that might of Kathy and Eileen. I mean, the two they make a good team. And, well, Kathy will joke that she will do something mean to Eileen. She never does, and obviously she intends to when the events happen to Eileen. That, well, she's obviously safe. I mean, when Eileen, of course, finds out that Kathy had an abortion when she was younger. It, well, that's the kind of a heavy bombshell to drop on anybody. But Eileen does take it in stride. Of course, this is also depending on the choice I guess you make in the story. It actually makes it seem like they would even make a nice little couple. And we get to see a lot of things get improved on in this one. Certain things help the story play out even better. And you do have to figure some things out. Now, I'm not going to dive into the story even more because the main story pretty much stays the same. You have more puzzles to figure out, like locating where the lights were spotted, and trying to figure out what happened involving Lily was another thing. And yes, you can make mistakes that'll cost you in the end. You have to learn. That's part of the game. You have to learn. And you see where some people have lost their way and some people are finding their way. It's definitely adds to things. I mean, you find out a lot more. And I'm trying to remember some of the things that popped up in this game that I didn't recall popping up in the previous one. But there is a certain sections that were not in the original. I do not recall the puzzle with the cross being in the end game sequence. I do know that in that end game sequence we didn't have a situation where we were, quote, trying to get up an escalator and avoid falling rocks. There are a lot of things I don't recall. But there's other things that I did take notice of. I mean, the some of these between the day sequences, it does help to show the relationship between characters. And I swear there's a part of me that could recall that there was not only just a gentleman in red, but also a gentleman in white, which, and I could be wrong about that too. I could be misremembering stuff. But I think that this was an excellent addition to it, giving more story to it, making me, wonder. And it does give a better potential for a sequel game. I mean, I could see Kathy getting into more surreal mysteries like this with Eileen as her partner. Could I see them in a relationship? That is all, of course, all in all what the story developers choose to do if they make another game with Kathy. And I'm not going to be afraid to say I could see it happening. I mean, there were some. in the 90s, late in the mid 90s, this wasn't necessarily, quote, well, it was still the time of awakening back then. And I think that's why I also like this game so much, is because, well, Kathy's in college. And I was in college at the same time in the 90s. I remember the time of the 3.5 floppy disks. I also remember the 5.25 floppy disks, of course. When an idea of a 1 terabyte hard drive was way out there. And before it was even before we had solid state drives. But it's definitely something to keep in mind for the time. I do believe that this was a greater expansion. And I like it when they're able to add something which shows that the initial product didn't necessarily have everything in it. And I did like the new puzzles. Finding pictures to piece them together to figure out the truth of what happened to Lily Myers. And encountering the lights on the lake, that's something else. The cliff top where you find and where you can find information. That was also nicely done. So, if you've played Kathy Rain, I would definitely recommend getting the director's cut. I would definitely recommend you playing it. If you didn't get Kathy Rain, I would definitely recommend that if you do decide to get the game, I would go with the director's cut because you get a more complete story. If you want to see what the story was before they got everything back in there, definitely get the original Kathy Rain, A Detective is Born. And I do hope that that Raw Fury, Clifftop Games, they make a second Kathy Rain game, a true second Kathy Rain game, a new story, because you've got so much you could expand on there. You could look into Kathy's mother's actual situation in life. You could have her hunt down her father and get involved in another mystery there. You could even expand on this relationship that might be there, might not be, between Kathy and Eileen. I think they'd make a cute little couple. And this is also showing how much I have matured since my college days, since before college and all that. You would never have thought that much in the 90s, in the early 90s. You would always be looking at two people and not thinking, oh, they'd make a cute couple if they were both the same gender. But with these two, I can actually see it. I could see them as a couple. Of course, if they got together and then broke up and they're still roommates, well, that would be a very awkward situation. But I digress. Kathy Rain, the director's cut, it was a great game, great experience, and this comes from someone who is not too keen on remakes unless they're done very, very well. And having played the original and then playing the director's cut, definitely. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and Next week, probably have another one pop up. I think I have some planned out to be popping up in the next weeks or so. So until next time, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, a Rich Gen X elsewhere. Goodbye, all.